Straight on to the top story at 9 p.m. this evening on India Tonight. It really is a letter bomb by the Tatas against Tata-Mistry. Tata Sons, that's the holding company of the over $100 billion Tata empire today, issued not one, not two, but a 9-page statement accusing its recently ousted chairman of twisting facts and using devious means to take control of group companies, including Indian hotels. In a point-to-point rebuttal against the concerns raised by Mistry, Tata Sons said he contributed little to the growth of group companies during the 4 years when he served as the executive chairman. The Tatas say dividend income declined considerably during the period, even as expenses shot up, leading to considerable value erosion. Not just that, the letter goes on to say that Mistry attempted to dismantle the group structure to take it away from the promoters. Earlier in the day, Tata Sons removed Mistry as chairman of TCS, which contributes to over 60% to the group's total revenues. Justifying Mistry's removal from TCS, the letter says he had no role in the IT flagship, which is being run by a group of very accomplished professionals. Mistry has refuted all these charges, stating that the charges of conflict of interest with the Shapoorji Pallonji are nothing but a smear campaign to divert the attention from the core issues. The full-blown war between the Tata camp on one hand and Mistry on the other is our top story right here on India Tonight. Let's take you straight across and cover this entire round of blows between Tatas and Mistry and the possible implications. We're joined by Abhinav Das, Ashwin Mohan and Vijay Ganeshan Iyer. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for being with us this evening and putting it all in perspective as far as this bitter boardroom battle is concerned, which seems to be getting uglier by the day, incidentally. But Ashwin, let's begin with you. Congratulations, on breaking that story earlier in the day today. But the Tatas making it very clear that Mistry let the group down. Run us through the highlights of this letter. It's not a one, not a two, but a 9-page document that they've actually released.
That's right, Supriya. In fact, it's an exhaustive document, and some would say that such a detailed response was indeed required to put all the critics of the Tata Group at bay, because there's been this criticism that a one-line plain vanilla statement that the board lost confidence is not sufficient when you knock off the chairman of India's biggest and most widely diversified conglomerate. So therein, it clearly would soothe the frayed nerves of several of the stakeholders. Now, clearly, I think TCS hawked the limelight as far as their allegations of underperformance is concerned, because Tata Sons was of the opinion that if you had to look at Mistry's performance during his 4-year reign, then you had to reduce or subtract the income that came from TCS, which of course is a heavyweight as far as the group revenues are concerned. They were also of the opinion that it's only TCS and JLR that performed well, and that therefore masked several of the other deficiencies of Cyrus Mistry. They've in fact highlighted 3 companies that were in spots of bother. One, Tata Motors. Secondly, they've also spoken about Tata Steel's UK operations. And thirdly, Tata Teleservices and Docomo. They're saying that they did not notice any noticeable improvement in the operations of all these 3 companies. In fact, they've come down hard regarding Mistry's entire handling of Tata Motors, saying that both the passenger and the commercial vehicle segment, the market shares really slumped. People were not enthusiastic about the new launches, and clearly they are saying that it was all banked upon JLR. Then they're looking upon some of the recruitments that were made by Cyrus Mistry, and I quote from the letter, several insiders were watching silently as several key executives without any experience of handling large listed companies were being recruited. So clearly that created a lot of friction as part of the entire Tata Group dynamics. Some people in Ratan Tata's camp, some people coming in from Cyrus Mistry's camp. Then, of course, there is a serious allegation of conflict of interest, saying that Cyrus cannot go ahead and erase any potential conflict of interest because they are speaking about deals that were struck between the Tata Group and Shapoorji Pallonji Mistry. Then, of course, they go into figures and they speak about how the group's indebtedness had in fact risen since Cyrus Mistry took over. Clearly a huge relief coming in, because the absence of this detailed justified rationale was the reason why the Tata Sons board had come in for criticism. And of course with Cyrus Mistry also coming out with detailed responses in the public domain, I guess the Tata Sons board did not have any other choice but to go ahead and give out this hard-hitting statement. Of course, now it will be interesting to see how things pan out, because they have gone and taken the plunge when it comes to TCS. Ishaq Hussain is the new man in charge, the interim chairman, and they've pulled the plug on TCS. TCS will of course be easier for them, but the road ahead as far as other listed companies are concerned, because Tata Sons doesn't have too much of a majority stake in them, that's going to be a bit of a bother. But clearly a 9-page bombshell being dropped on Cyrus-Mistry today, and of course you would have expected the speed with which they have moved as far as the TCS chairmanship is also concerned, Supriya.
Indeed, he wasn't expecting much, but I'm sure he's not prepared to take this lying down. And let's take this across then to Abhinav Das, who's joining us with information from what's really happening at the Mistry camp. How are they reacting to this 9-page, rather scathing document that has been released by Tata Sons?
It's a war of words going on. In fact, hours after Tata Sons released the 9-page letter, the Cyrus-Mistry camp hit back, saying that blaming Mistry for Tamo's ills is fallacious and shows desperation on the part of the Tatas. In fact, it goes on to say that the press release is actually selective data that has come out from the House of the Tatas, although the specific reason as to why he was sacked was not made public. In fact, it goes on to say that the Tatas are yet to specify the exact reason why he was shown the door, and the reasons were not even tabled on the 24th October meeting. In fact, pointing out to the allegations that there were conflict of interest with the Shapurji group, Cyrus-Mistry sources say that the former chairman had instructed Tata Group companies to not sign any new contracts with the Shapurji Palonji group, and it's a smear campaign that the Tatas are running just to bring down Cyrus-Mistry. So in fact, both sides sticking to the guns. Coming days will be exciting, and it will be interesting to see how the Cyrus-Mistry camp responds to the allegations that the Tatas have levelled today against the former Tata Group chairman.
All right, hang on there, both Ashwin and Abhinava, because Vijay's got another developing story on that front in the midst of this big boardroom tussle. Cyrus-Mistry has managed to find yet another support from yet another group company, and that's coming in from Tata Chemicals after independent directors have backed Mistry in the face of mounting pressure from Tata Sons for his ouster. What exactly transpired there, Vijay?
Supriya, as far as Tata Chemicals board meet, when you speak to the director, they were clear that it was business as usual. As we broke the story around 5:30 p.m. after the board of Tata Chemicals met, and the board meeting started around 11 and went on till 5 p.m. Clearly, the board is of the opinion that they have full confidence on Cyrus-Mistry, and there's no reason why Cyrus-Mistry should not continue as the chairman of Tata Chemicals. Having said that, they also put forth certain resolutions passed in the earlier board meet, saying how meritorious his job has been and how he was in sync with what the board wants and how he's been sailing the ship very efficiently. And most crucially and importantly, they mentioned the resolution passed in the just recently concluded AGM, where he has been reappointed as director for 3 years. So clearly they are saying it's business as usual, and clearly a lot of things although were discussed, and as expected, as per the Indian hotel script, the same script panned out here also at the board meet of Tata Chemicals, with the board unanimously supporting Cyrus-Mistry not only to continue but also clearly giving him a thumbs up for the work that he's been doing. Now the all interesting board meet of Tata Steel will be held here at Bombay House tomorrow morning at 11, and that is again a very crucial board meet, because we all know Tata Steel is one of the biggest troubled companies, if I could say that, in the group of companies of Tatas, and that is where that board meet again only called for Q2 results, although would be crucial, and to see would the same script of Indian hotels and Tata Chemicals pan out at Tata Steel, because as we had been reporting earlier, the board in more or less is in sync with the way Cyrus-Mistry handled the Tata Steel crisis. So all eyes after Tata Chemicals and Indian hotels on the crucial board meet here at Bombay House of Tata Steel tomorrow.
Indeed, yet another board backing Cyrus-Mistry there, but important information coming in on Indian Hotels that has announced that Tata Sons, a shareholder in the company, has called for an extraordinary general meeting for the removal of Cyrus-Mistry as the director of the company. Mistry is currently the chairman of IHCL, and just last week its independent directors had expressed their faith in his leadership. All right, Ashwin Mohan, Abhinav Das, and Vijay Ganesh Nair, thank you very much for joining in with those details. But time to really put the focus and get more perspective on that big battle between the Tatas and Mistry on the other side. It's getting murkier by the day. We're getting inside details of what's really happening in the boardroom. How are things panning out? Is this a clash of egos? Or were there serious issues with the finances there? Suhail Seth, Jain Gupta, Hitesh Jain and Sunil Alag all join us right here on India Tonight. Thank you very much, each one of you, for being with us. Sunil Alag, if I may begin with you, it's a 9-page bombshell, like my colleague Ashwin called it. It's quite a scathing letter. The charges against Cyrus are very serious, including the one which says he almost tried to dismantle the group structure and tried to take control away from the promoters. But what took Tata so long to come out with this letter?
No, look, I mean, none of us know what has been conveyed to the Tata Sons board and all, and this letter that has come out today, we've all read it. Now, obviously, Cyrus is not going to accept it and he's going to give a reply. My point of view is that he's obviously going to say that the Tata Sons board was informed. See, nobody is getting to my assessment is the crux of the problem is that Cyrus's style of management and Ratan Tata's style of management met with a clash. Okay, now, I don't know since when was Tata Sons, after all, Ratan Tata had left also 4 years ago. He was not on the Tata Sons board. So Cyrus was running it with the independent directors and everybody else. Now, Ratan Tata has only come back now. So obviously, there's a Tata culture of saying that we don't sell anything, we always stay with it, we try our level best to revive it, and then at the end of it, we decide to sell. Now, Cyrus Mistry's style was that we are running a large debt and the only way to run debt is to get rid of everything where we are making losses, and in his view, they don't necessarily have a future. So he's obviously gone around, he's sold hotels in Boston and he's selling off Tata Steel in UK and whatever else. So at some point of time, after a couple of years, this is now a clash of culture and styles. Now, at what point of time was Cyrus conveyed that this is it? And I've always raised this issue saying that, look, if there's a pure professional manager, he has two options when he loses the confidence of the board, whether it's style, culture, results, or whatever it is. He can either say, look, I'll fall in line with what you're saying, or I'm putting in my papers. The difference with Cyrus is that he's a professional with 18% interest. Now, 18% is a huge amount, so you can't take him lightly. And I think I said that right in the beginning. Perhaps his exit was not handled correctly, and had that been handled correctly, maybe it wouldn't have been such a lot of drama. To have an overnight exit for him is what perhaps has caused all the problem. But at the end of it, Ratan Tata has 60%. How are you going to fight a 60% owner with 18%? You might get the support of various independent directors who are in a way stuck because individual companies have their own independent boards and they have to take their own decisions, and they've been praising Cyrus for all his results and agreeing. So how can they go against it today? Now there's a clash out here. Ratan Tata is a gentleman and I think they should all get in together and finish it. Otherwise they're going to start damaging the Tata brand. That's the way I look at it. And that's the reason why I can only assess, nothing else.
I wonder if there's really scope for them to get together. But Suhail Seth, let's really put there are three stories today. The IHCL EGM being called, Tata Chemicals, TCS and the letter. We're going to focus on the letter for the time being because the moot question is that what took Tata Sons so long to write that letter? It's a very detailed letter, but it's still, and many people out there, at least in the Mistry camp, believe that there's very convenient use of data in that letter. How would you refute that or support that claim?
So here's my view. I tend to agree with some of the comments that Sunil Alag has made. There were obviously cultural differences. Let's just for a moment dwell on history. Ratan Tata had walked away and walked far away, didn't attend any of the meetings, even though he could have as chairman emeritus. He did tell Cyrus, be your own man. He allowed the space that should be given to a chairman. Obviously, there were issues that pained him. Why should they pain him? For two reasons. Sunil touched upon one, which is 66% of the ownership of Tata Sons by Tata Trust. But Ratan Tata is more than just the chairman emeritus. He also is in many ways the custodian of the value architecture of the Tatas. Then there's the question which you very correctly asked about the independent directors. I want to just say one thing without, obviously, no allegations, nothing. I think it is time for independent directors on some of these boards to actually make full disclosure of their personal and business relationships with the Shapoorji Pallonji Group or with any other group. Because, you know, you and I don't know, and your Economic Times, your ET Now, your paper, Economic Times, on October the 26th, 27th, alluded to conflicts of interest between the House of Tata and Shapoorji Pallonji. It wasn't me, it was your newspaper, which is venerable and does a huge amount of investigation. The third issue, which you correctly asked, why did the Tatas take time? I have known the Tatas since being an account executive in advertising. There is a particular decency and elegance. Sunil called it gentlemanliness, I call it genteelness as well. They're not the kind who will get into a pit for a mud fight. That's not them, that's not Ratan Tata. There's a certain unequivocal, understated style which says that we will do everything in a manner that is genteel, gentlemanly and elegant. We're not street fighters. This is not a brawl. This, to my mind, is not, as you rightly or wrongly state, sorry for my cough, I've just come from Delhi, as you can imagine. It is not a boardroom battle that you define. I see it as a battle for protecting the value architecture, the ethical prism of the House of Tata. Why did they take so long to draft this letter? Why did they not? Because they're not going to work to schedules of television programs and television channels or newspapers. The fact that they took time to respond in this 9-page letter is that they were assiduous in understanding what their response should be and why it should contain the kind of data it does. Whether the data is selective or not is for you to judge. But the fact is that it's 9 pages. It also outlines what they believed, and perhaps rightly so, were some issues of cultural transgression which needn't have been made. For instance, the supremacy of the board of Tata Sons was unquestioned for over a century. It was then subsumed by another executive council, whatever that executive council is. See, you and I can never know the details, but from prima facie, it seems it was cultural, it was ethical, and it was value. That is, to my mind, the essence of the issue.
I get that point, and I appreciate the point that you're making, that, you know, somebody has to be a custodian of brand Tata and the ethics of the Tata Group. All of that said and done, I completely buy your point there. But Mr. Gupta, I want to throw this question to you. I'm sure, just like the rest of us on this panel here, you've had a chance to go through that 9-page letter as well. It's a long letter. It goes into many details. But does this leave a lot to subjective interpretation? There is a lot of subjectiveness in that letter. People will say the letter alleges that TCS was really the big cash cow. Cyrus-Mistry did not contribute to this. But as the chairman, you're responsible for the group at large. There will be some companies that will do well. There will be others that will not.
Hello. Yeah, I was listening to the conversation. I will start this conversation with saying that yes, Tatas have been known to be a gentleman, Ratan Tata a gentleman, and everything is good. But if you take response from the Tata as a response from a gentleman, then the first question comes that the sheer act of removing Mr. Mistry in a jiffy was also not according to the Tata culture. So in my opinion, that is the start of the problem. Now coming back to the letter of Mr. Mistry being selective, Tata being selective, I think it is very much difficult for any one of us to adjudicate on the matter. One. Second issue is this, that when we say that JLR performance, TCS performance and all other things, and one side taking credit for this, other side denying the credit, I would say you cannot say that out of the good egg and bad eggs, all the good eggs are mine, bad eggs are yours. So it applies to both. Now coming back to all that is unfolding, I do agree that it is not in good taste. And it is not for the good reputation of Tata, and it is certainly hurting all the stakeholders. So I would feel that Tatas have already started the process of removing Mr. Mistry from the various companies by asking a extraordinary general meeting to be called, where the resolution will be moved. And as the indications are, because of their shareholding that they have, although it is not in absolute majority, but because of looking at the past voting pattern where the retail investors do not participate, and in most of the companies they have got 20% plus retail investors, so 40% shareholding will work, and Tata have 30 to 40% in all the companies, and if LIC comes on the board, then they have a clear battle, one battle which will be winning.
Right.
And I would feel that at this juncture, everybody should forget about their personal fight, but should concentrate on the wealth of the nation, the companies which are there, and employees and all the stakeholders, and let the business move. You fight your battles in the court, but not in the boardroom.
But you know, that is exactly the point. And so here, Setha, I wanted to come in on that. I know you wanted to make a point there, but I'm throwing a question at you as well. This is really at some stage, if you see IHCL, if you see Tata Chemicals, TCS, it seems to be a slugfest between independent directors on one hand and Tata Sons on the other. But this does defy the law in spirit. Independent directors are supposed to take independent positions on this matter, and they're perhaps just doing that.
Absolutely. So the question that begs an answer is, how truly independent are these independent directors? If you read that 9-page note, there's a very important point that there was one common director, which was Mr. Mistry himself, right through the strain. The independent directors who are there, I would urge them to make full disclosure of their relationships, both personal and business, and of their families, if their children have funds, if their children have businesses in which there were cross interests. I think what Mr. Gupta said was very pertinent. Who actually fired the salvo? The salvo that was initially fired was protection. Mr. Gupta said, in a jiffy, he and I don't know, neither do you. How do we not know that there were many outreaches made to Mr. Mistry to say that we don't believe that there is harmony in alignment with the Tata way of working, with the Tata ethos? We can't comment on that. But the first salvo, in terms of an email that was leaked to the press, was from Mr. Mistry's side. And he may have his reasons for doing it. I'm just making a very dispassionate point here, Sunitha, which is, Tata's is not about a conglomerate. Tata's is about giving back. It is public confidence, it is trust. It's not that Mr. Tata has a son or a daughter to build a legacy and leave behind something for his heirs. For him to come back after having selected Mr. Mistry and agreed to mentor him, for which he was also executive vice chairman of Tata Sons for 1 year and then 4 years as chairman Tata Sons, it must have been, and it is, I'm sure, a painful decision. You don't want to come back and repudiate and, almost negate the trust that you reposed in this man. So it's pain all across. But one man, to my mind, and I've known him from 1990, for Ratan Tata, it must be exceedingly excruciating in his twilight years, when he had begun to promote innovators and young people, worked with Berkeley and UCLA in terms of philanthropy, to come back to this, to see all this play out in the public domain. I mean, it is painful for everyone. I'm sure it's equally painful for Mr. Mistry. But there's grace in walking away, because Mr. Tata has only one avowed objective that I know of, not that he's told me personally, which is being the custodian of the values of the House of Tata. It's not about brands. It's about the values. Yes. It's about the confidence of people. It's about employees. It's about government. It's about brand India. So let's not equate this with any other company which is going through this kind of an issue.
Fair point indeed. I understand that, and I appreciate it very much, the point that you're making, that independent directors perhaps need to come out there if there's any conflict of interest there. But Hitesh Jain, I want to talk about the larger, slugfest that's playing out here, because there seems to be a slugfest between Tata Sons on one hand and independent directors on the other. Truth be told, independent directors are representatives of shareholder. If you are going to roughshod over them through EGMs and other things like that, you're perhaps defying the law in its spirit, maybe not in writing, maybe not in letter.
Well, I think the independent directors are also caught between what has been going on. Now, frankly speaking, if you will look at the way it all emerged out when Cyrus Mistry was removed from as a chairman from the Tata Sons board, What he did was that he started the slugfest by way of a letter in which he wrote, he was writing about various things in which he hinted about the management control, the power not been given and all. So this was a process initiated by him. He put a lot of questions on the decision-making process, and he took the battle to the public at large. Now, once you are taking to the battle in front of the people, you are questioning the decisions of the company, you are questioning the decision-making process, then basically it casts a shadow on each and every person who is involved as a part of the management, and therefore this whole and part of it, there was no information coming in because the information was in the public domain. Finally, I mean, the Tatas came out with the clarification today after the broad observations they had made in the couple of weeks before. So there was a lot of speculation and other aspects going on. And in this situation, I mean, it's a very unfortunate situation where the independent directors are also getting questioned. People are trying to understand how independent are these independent directors. And therefore, I mean, unless the parties sit down or try to resolve the issues, or either one party goes to the court and all, I mean, we are going to continuously see this this battle in the media rather than in the company, rather than the discussions being held in the company. You are going to see the battle in the media. And I mean, this is for both the stakeholders to decide, I mean, what are the consequences of such battle that are eventually going to follow.
Indeed, those are the consequences of the battle that will follow. I have time for very quick closing comments from each one of you. And Mr. Gupta, I must ask you the question that comes to everybody's mind, that, you know, independent directors set aside, Tata Sons set aside. This really seems to be a clash of working styles, a clash of personalities of two gentlemen, the previous chairman, the ousted chairman, one who's back. Are the shareholders paying a price for all of this, really? And should they be doing that?
See, I would say it is a mix of everything. It is a clash of personality, it is a clash of conflict of interest, it is a clash of style of working, and maybe many other things. But when you say the independent directors, so I would say that at present the independent directors are behaving exactly what they are expected to behave, because you see, on Tata Sons board, whosoever were the independent director have already been questioned that when they rated Mr. Mistry as excellent in June, what has happened from June to October that they have shown him the door. Now, these independent directors in Indian Hotel or Tata Chemicals and all other companies had done the same evaluation of Mr. Mistry in June. Now, if they were to suggest the sacking of Mr. Mistry as a chairman on these boards, they would have faced the same question. In addition, they would have faced the question that they are in cahoot with the directors of Tata Sons board. So in order to avoid those uncomfortable questions, the best way forward was that they should act independently and say that let Mr. Mistry continue. And they were very well aware, or they are aware, that if it comes to matter comes to shareholder, Tata will be eventual winner. That's why they think. And then the question has been asked that it will be settled by the court. But what is going to be settled in the court? Where is the legal dispute? There is no legal dispute. The Tata Sons is very well within their right to remove a chairman. They have removed a chairman. Each and every shareholder has a right to remove a resolution. They have moved a resolution. If the resolution gets passed in the AGM or EGM, there is no legal issue unless until any of this process is vitiated by any action. So in my opinion, there is no legal issue which has to be decided in the court at present. Yes, but one thing would be decided. When all the issues of misgovernance are coming or allegations are coming from one side to other, and they have not remembered that when you are in the board, you have a collective responsibility. So all these things will be, regulator will have to look into all these things, and if there is any misgovernance issue, regulator will take appropriate action.
Hitesh Jain, given all the mudslinging that's happening on both sides, do you expect the regulators to step in perhaps a little more sternly than they have so far?
Regulators can step in because the facts that are presented does not require regulators to intervene. There is a principle of corporate democracy. The shareholders and the board, they are entitled to take the decision. This is effectively a fight between members of the management. A certain group is perceiving in some way, they're acting in some way. One person has been removed as a chairman. There's a question of independence. This is purely the domain. This is the battle of Tatas, Tata Sons, Tata, and all the Tata Group of companies. The regulators cannot step in because, it's all easier to say that, regulators should intervene and all, but there is a heavy price that is required to be paid. I mean, is there not a corporate democracy in India? The corporate cannot manage its own disputes, own affairs? So if regulators will start intervening merely it is because Tata or large conglomerate, that does not mean that the regulator should step in. This is a battle of Tatas. Ultimately, if the value and ultimately the company and the stakeholders should decide as to where this battle will lead and what the consequence will be. So at the moment, on the basis of the information that is available and the material that has been exchanged between the parties or the letters that have been and the rebuttals, I don't think the regulator can intervene on the basis of the available facts.
So Ian said you want to come in on that. My larger question is, it's all right. I mean, both sides perhaps are trying to put their point of view across. They're both trying to put facts on the table. You may agree with some, you may disagree with the others. There's perhaps selective leak and information that's being put out on both sides. Where does this all go from here? I mean, legally it's not tenable so much. The regulators can't step in. Where does this mudslinging really help and head?
So, Supriya, you being a journalist of long standing, I just want to raise 3 quick points. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, the eminent stock market gentleman, said in an interview that how could a sitting chairman of a company trash his own company and reduce its market value, which ironically happened through that email which Mr. Mistry sent. The second point is that Mr. Mistry knew of the challenges in some of those companies. To raise those challenges again rather than resolve them would in itself be a self-goal. The third, which is a very important question, where do you go from here? Who began the mudslinging? And now for the Tatas to remain silent, the response would have been, oh, that means they have something to hide, why are they silent? When they respond, it's seen as, oh, it's a battle out in the public domain. I have a very simple thing to say, and I will end by saying it. Ratan Tata doesn't need to be chairman emeritus of the Tata Group, but Ratan Tata does need to ensure that the house of Tata's value prism doesn't even have one blemish on it. And if for that he's willing to slug it out, more power to his elbow. The fact remains is that, as I said earlier, for me personally, as a citizen, I have no single shares. I don't even have a demat account. All my money is a fixed deposit, for God's sake. So I'm not an interested party. All I can say is we have very few things in India to be proud of. The House of Tata is one of them. Nothing would pain us more if there would be blemishes in its values or in its culture. And for that, if we have to fight 1,000,000 battles, each one is worth fighting for. Because ultimately, as the Tatas believe, truth and trust will only be the 2 things that will prevail. It has stood them the test of time for over a century, and the next century beckons with the same level of trust and faith.
On that note, completely out of time on this edition of the Tata Spat as we are seeing this develop. But thank you very much, Sohail Seth, Mr. J.N. Gupta, Hitesh Jain, and of course, Sunil Alak for joining us this evening.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.